Hey everybody, it's Larry Steinhouse, and this is the Larry Steinhouse Show. I'm excited. We got more stuff going on all day today. Lots of fun, talking to lots of cool people. And you know what? I got somebody in my audience say a little bit different than we usually do. We usually talk to coaches, but what's really cool is I met a guy named Ed Siger. I'm going to talk about Ed in a minute. And Ed is a mold and restoration specialist. Now, to me, the reason I got so excited about this is because when we have somebody who does something different, first of all, it's fun to talk about. But besides that, as a mold and restoration specialist and as a real estate investor, we can find houses that we normally would pass unless we know a guy like Ed. So, Ed, I want to ask you a question about mold and restoration, all right? So, yes. How bad is mold for you?
Well, mold it depends. Somebody could not get sick from mold at all, and other people can get deathly sick. It can be blood test. You could have a blood test and find out there's traces of mold in your bloodstream. If you're around mold in your home, it could be very bad. It could lead to respiratory problems. So anytime someone sees mold in their home, it's important that they have it inspection done and mold testing done as soon as possible.
All right. So somebody has mold testing done. They find mold in the house. Well, first of all, let me take a step back. What is a mold test like?
Well, there's two different types that we can take. We can take a swab where you visibly can see the mold, and we swab that and we send it to the lab, or we set up what we call an air sampling machine. It's a pump, so it pumps air through a cartridge that collects the air sample in the room, and then we send that to the lab. We do whatever room you think is or could be affected, we do, and then we measure that against the air quality outside.
Huh. So all right. So all right. So it's funny because every once in a while, as a landlord, I get someone who says to me, "There's mold in the basement," and you know what? They're probably right.
Yes.
But I don't really know what I need to do at this point. So I've had in the past, I've had people go out and they scrape it, they do this, and they charge me a lot of money to tell me that it's that kind of mold that's not a big problem. Or it's nothing, or it'll take, or they spray it with, I guess they spray it with bleach. I don't even know what they spray it with. I honestly, I don't know. I just assuming that's what they do because I don't know how they restore it. But so how do we avoid mold? How do we get mold? How do we treat mold?
Well, how you can avoid mold is if you have a basement to make sure that if it's a basement, there's moisture in, to run a dehumidifier so the moisture levels do not get that high. That creates an environment for mold growth.
Oh, it's that simple? Wow. It's funny. I never realized it was that simple. I just assumed.
It can be, yes.
Oh, okay. It can be. It's not always, though.
Yes.
But well, and, you guys, you got to be really expensive for me to come down and say, hey, would a dehumidifier solve my problem? Or is there a way to know that the dehumidifier would solve the problem?
Well, yeah, there's a way to know if the dehumidifier will help is if you take a sample of the relative humidity in the basement. It should be somewhere around 50%.
Okay.
If it's 50%, you don't need a dehumidifier. If it's up around 65, 70, then I would recommend a dehumidifier in the basement.
So that actually could save a lot of time and a lot of effort.
Yes.
So you do things.
A lot of money also.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Exactly. Yeah, right.
Yes.
Yeah, money's always a good thing to save, especially for a landlord, right?
Yes.
So when we buy houses, first of all, people like me, we're just buying them all the time. We're not inspecting them. But if somebody's buying a house, they're getting an inspection, and they see, the white dust or the white mold or, the inspectors. First of all, I realize that the home inspector isn't a mold specialist, so they call everything that's white mold. I've always noticed that, right?
Yes.
But then they panic the guy, because as a real estate agent, I've seen that happen too, where they panic the people, and then they go and then they do a mold test. But when they do the mold test, isn't it like all kinds of crazy suits you have to wear, or is that for the mold remediation?
Well, that's for the mold remediation. For
okay.
Mold sampling, all we need to do is take a swab or an air sample and send it to the lab. And there's really no way of telling if you see what you think is mold. You don't know if it's mold unless you take a sample.
I've often made that argument. So when the home inspector goes in and goes, "Oh yeah, that's mold," I'm like, are you going to say that's mold, or are you going to say it could be mold? Because if you're saying it's mold, you better be mold certified.
Right. Yes.
If you think it could be mold, that's a very different topic.
Yes.
You got these home inspectors; they think they know everything, and you got to be really careful with them too. That's just a side note for those people who have dealt with home inspectors. Be really careful with that. All right, so now we find mold, and it's isolated, whatever it may be. So you come in then, and you double check it to make sure, and then after that, what is the process like?
Well, process is whatever area is contaminated, we set up a chamber.
Oh, you got to explain what a chamber is. This sounds interesting.
Well, a chamber is like, say, we'll put plastic up all around the affected area, and then we put a negative air machines inside that chamber, so when you're taking mold off, it puts particles in the air.
Okay.
So the air scrubber will collect that.
Huh.
So it puts the whole chamber under a negative pressure.
So how does the mold leave? So we're worried about the mold in the air. We're not worried about the mold on the surfaces then. Is that correct?
Correct. We're going to take it off of the surfaces with a HEPA vacuum cleaner.
Okay.
So we vacuum it, and then we treat the area with a antimicrobial, which we use a plant-based antimicrobial. And then when that's after that procedure's done, we paint it with an antimicrobial paint, because it still leaves the attachment points from the mold that you're taking off. So they need to be sealed so mold never grows again.
So you make it sound so easy. You make it sound like anybody can do it.
No, there's quite a bit of training that goes into mold remediation.
All right. So tell me about that. So what kind of, like, you have to be certified? Is that the story?
You are certified,
Okay.
yes, and we are an IICRC certified firm.
I see.
And
what is that?
It is a so basically what happened was the insurance industry got together with remediation specialists, and they formulated a standards of procedure for the restoration industry for both the insurance company to follow and the remediation experts in the field. So, and IICRC is a company that will certify your company, that they'd have to know that we do the training, that we're insured and all, then they will allow us to be certified through them.
Okay, so you go through training and you have to take a special test?
Yes, you do. It's classroom training, and I hold a certification in residential and commercial mold inspection, as well as being a tech.
That's okay. So that I mean, it sounds like is a lot of years to become a specialist, or how long does it take?
It was a lot of months.
Okay.
So basically, after the training, you take the test, and it's pass or fail, and of course.
I assume you passed it, right?
Of course.
All right, I just want to make sure, because if not, we'd have to kick you out here. We couldn't make you the mold specialist anymore. All right, but you do other things too. You do like fire restoration also.
We do.
So tell me about fire, because fire, like, to me, I just think like a house burns, it's over.
Well, about like fire restoration, the thing that I like to do is help the homeowner, because you can imagine if your home is on fire.
Sure.
And you've lost just about everything in the home. So they're devastated.
So when somebody has like a problem with, I'm sure that, I mean, look, first of all, my mother, I don't know if you know, did I ever tell you a story? My mother's house burned down to the ground.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, actually, this is an interesting story. I guess it's interesting now, but it was very sad. My mother had, and it's really, she had a Mercedes ML 320, I think it was, and apparently these cars had electrical issues. So she pulls the car into the garage, and the car is bucking. It's making it like not running right.
Yeah.
So she pulls into the garage, leaves it in the garage, and the next thing she knows, she goes inside. She starts eating breakfast, and she gets somebody knocks on the door. Your house is on fire, or there's smoke coming out of your garage is what happened, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, the car goes on fire. The house just engulfs in flames. They all get out of the house. The house engulfs in flames. In 10 minutes, there was nothing left of the house. Yeah. It was completely gone. They had to actually level the house and rebuild it.
Yes.
So talk about devastating. It is devastating when somebody loses their house. But I mean, you're not coming in to do a complete rebuild. You're coming in to do like if one wall burns down or if the kitchen burns down. Is that correct?
Well, yes. Well, basically, if we walk into a house where a kitchen fire, and say the rest of the house is filled with smoke, we would do the demolition to the kitchen that needed to be done, take out anything that was burned, and we clean the rest of the house.
So what's the difference between you and hiring a regular contractor if there's a fire? Can I just hire my regular contractor?
Well, he's not trained in the specialty of fire cleanup.
Okay, so it's the cleanup that's the biggest issue. So
Yes.
what's involved in the cleanup of fire cleanup?
Well, we go in the house and we fog it with an encapsulator to encapsulate the smoke through the whole home and through the ventilation system.
Oh, so what happens to the ventilation system when there's a fire?
When you have your returns for the ventilation system, the smoke gets sucked up in there and goes right through the whole system
Okay.
and through the whole house.
So when you're doing this, so really, when somebody has a fire in the house, even if it's, let's say it's a small kitchen fire, they one or two cabinets get taken out, the entire house has to be cleaned,
Yes.
and that's for what? For safety reasons or anything? Or what is it?
Well, the whole house is going to have an odor through it.
Oh, that makes sense. Sure, of
Yes.
course, yeah.
And it'll have soot on the walls. So what we do is we come in, we fog it with an encapsulator, encapsulate the smoke to help kill the odor. All the walls are cleaned with a chemical sponge, and then they're cleaned with a chemical, preferably a degreaser.
Okay.
And all the upholstery, clothing, everything in the house, every little knickknack, wall hanging, everything is cleaned.
So you must have some interesting arguments with insurance companies.
You can, yes, yes, yes.
So here, I know it's a side note, but because of that, do you prefer when somebody uses a public adjuster, or can you help them with that?
I can help them walk through the process of how to handle their claim.
Okay, because
But-
I've dealt with
you-
both, and I've had other people
Yes,
deal with both.
but usually it can be difficult, especially if you have a large loss, to be able to claim everything. So if it were my home, I would consider having a public adjuster
Okay,
because it
awesome.
makes sense for me to pay them a small percentage.
Right.
They take care of going through all the items, separating it, documenting and inventory everything.
Yeah, and people
needs to
don't
be
and people
replaced.
don't realize that when you have a public adjuster, yes, they take a small percentage, but typically they're going to get you
They're going to get you
a
that
lot more
percentage,
money
yes.
than you
More.
usually got before. I mean, right? It's like like if my $200 Robert Graham shirt gets damaged, I may not get $200 for it from the insurance company, but the public adjuster will get me $200 plus the tax plus the time it took,
Correct.
whatever, right,
Yes.
whatever, right. Yeah, I'm making it up, but you get the idea. I'm not making up the $200 Robert Graham shirt, but I'm definitely talking about the fact that the public adjuster will do that. So, by the way, Sarah Ross, she says thanks for the information. I'm curious to know if she had a problem. Sarah, if you did, let us know because that can certainly help you with that. So, all right, so there's fire damage, there's mold damage, water damage. Look, this must be a very different. It must be very different for you than, like I said, we talked about the average contractor before. How do you find people like we talked about this the other day. One of the houses on my block, 5 houses down, burned down. You happen to know the house.
Yes.
So how do you get informed by the homeowners who had fires or had flood damage or that kind of thing?
Usually, most of my referrals come through a networking group that I belong to.
Okay,
or they
great.
come right from the insurance agent.
Okay.
Some public adjusters.
Okay, great. So
Referrer.
like I mean, we used to call people ambulance changers. You're not an ambulance changer, I get
No,
it,
no.
but they would listen to their scanners and they would listen for things that happen. So are there people in your business that do stuff like that?
There are people in my business that do that.
Scanner's cheap. I would suggest you go get one.
No, I don't. I'm not. I'm a little too old for fist fighting because that's what goes on out in the street. They're fighting over
Really?
over fires. Yes, and I don't.
Oh, you have
time
to
for
tell
that.
me about that.
Yes.
That sounds fascinating. So
Yes.
people actually so there are actually people in your industry
Yes.
that show up. So that night while that house is burning, there are actually people while the people are crying over their house, they're handing them business cards.
Yes.
Wow.
They are fighting. We did a fire in Jenkintown. We did a cleanup on a house that were 3 doors down from the fire, and the homeowner was telling me about 2 companies that were out front fist fighting. She had to break them up. They were
Oh, so her house. Let me get this straight. Her house is burning down,
yes,
right? And these 2 people are fighting over talking to her, and she has to. All the things she has to worry about at the moment is one of them is breaking them up.
yes,
That's
physically
really
broke the
nice.
fight up. Yes.
That's amazing. Well, I'm glad you're not that kind of person. That's
No.
that's pretty wild, though. All right, so tell me tell me about like the craziest thing you've ever gone into, the craziest job you've ever had to work on.
Well, it was when I first started the company, and there was a home in Northeast Philly that I got called out on a sewage loss.
A sewage loss, okay?
Sewage loss. The drain backed up, and the sewage must have been pumping into the basement for a month.
Oh boy.
Yes. So there was over a foot of sewage in 3/4 of the basement.
No.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
so I'm starting to just imagine the smell. How bad was that?
It was awful.
Okay, so when you go there and you now have to fix this,
Yes.
how did you fix it? But did you take the job?
Yes.
I guess you have to, right?
Yes. Yes. Pretty much.
Especially because it was one of your first jobs. So
it's our least favorite job to do, but we do them.
So it gets worse and worse every time I think about it. So what do you go in like waiter boots?
Yeah, you go in boots and gloves and respirators and Tyvek suits, and we're using what is a flood pumper,
right,
to suck up the sewage.
Okay, so where do you put it?
It has to go in containers and get hauled away.
Okay.
Yes.
Wow, that's got to be an expensive cleanup.
Yes.
So sewage like that. So the sewage like that, where did it come from? Did it come from inside the house, or did it get backed up from outside?
Backed up from outside. The drain backed up and was spewing out of the toilet.
Wow. So
in the basement.
So is this something that the city's responsible for? Or is this something that
usually it's a breakage in a pipe going from the homeowner's house to the street.
Really?
To the main.
Wow. I mean,
Yes.
So all right, so wow. Sorry, I just keep thinking about it.
It's awful.
It's totally grossing me out. So the other day, I found it interesting. You had went into a house that a friend of ours owns. Actually, it was Phil's house. Right.
Yes.
So Phil is my partner in the school. We also both know Ed. And you went into a house because he had soot on the walls on one of the houses he owned. Right.
Yes.
And in 5 seconds, you were able to figure out that it was the heater.
Yes.
And all of us are mesmerized by this one,
yes.
and how you were able to do that. So tell me about like what happens with heaters that go bad, and why, and how you can solve that problem, and how you knew that was the problem.
Well, I knew it was the problem when I did a walkthrough, and there were black cobwebs all through the house.
So what is the black cobwebs? Because that's really interesting.
So it looks like when someone looks like a dust web.
Okay.
In the corner of the wall.
Huh.
And they form from fuel being spewed through the house.
Okay.
And what happened was it was a cracked heat exchanger in the heater. I knew that without looking at it because the cobwebs.
Okay.
So it forced it through the ventilation system, and every part of the house is covered in cobwebs, black cobwebs.
Huh. Ooh, yuck. Okay, so I mean, we just found that fascinating that you that you knew immediately what it was and why it happened. And she said there were problems with the heater. She actually, I think she had the heater off at the time, right?
Yes.
And she said there were problems with the heater, but you knew exactly what it was. That was pretty cool too. Yeah. So I bought a house once where I had the prior owner was a chain smoker.
Oh yeah.
And the house was actually, it was so bad. Everything in the house was like a orange brown tint. You know, like that color that, I mean, we got to the point where I didn't know you, and I kind of wish I did at the time, but we literally replaced every outlet, every light switch, everything in the house we could possibly replace, and then we put 2 or 3 coats, I think, of Kills primer on, and it worked. But was there anything else that we should have done?
Well, I would have encapsulated the house in the ventilation system and had the ventilation system cleaned.
We did that too, but I don't know if we did it your way.
I would use shellac on the walls.
Okay,
One coat of shellac will seal.
So is shellac the same as Kills?
No.
Okay. No. All right. Well, it happened to work, but I'm really glad it worked. But like I said, I wish I knew you at the time. So that's interesting too. So I've heard of shellac being used before, but isn't that like really hard to put on drywall?
No, it's not really hard to put on.
Okay.
What it is people don't like to use it because it affects your eyes and all. So you have to have a full mask on.
Okay.
And it can affect your respiratory system as well. So our guys
that's
are
wonderful.
All in
So
a full mask with filters, charcoal filters.
I guess that stops after it dries, though.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Cool. Okay. All right. So we got mold, we got fire, and then so is water and restoration is different than mold restoration, right?
Yes, it is.
So tell me a little bit about water restoration, because water's a pain in the ass.
Yes, water's a pain in the ass because it'll leak from one spot and you won't know. You'll find it wet all the way on the other side of the room.
Right.
So what we use to determine that, we use meters.
Okay.
And we also use infrared camera to determine
Where it's coming from?
where it's coming from.
Oh, that's kind of neat.
Because it'll show up on the screen as a cold spot in the home.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Oh, that's kind of cool. So you can, because I've actually seen that happen before, where the roof is leaking 3 feet from where the drip is,
Yes.
and you can't find it. So you can actually find that.
Yes.
I gotta tell you that's valuable information right there, because we've seen that before. We can't figure out where it's leaking. But if you can find it, that's pretty awesome, man. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now, when you so what kind of damage do you have to fix from water damage?
Well, it's very important that you get to water damage right away, because the longer it sits, it becomes unsanitary.
Okay.
So we have different classifications. So basically, we go out and check the perimeter of the room that's affected and see what areas need to come out. So we'll take drywall out because it usually wicks up the wall 2 feet.
Okay.
So we'll cut that out so that we can dry the cavity of the wall. If that's not done, it's a possibility of mold growth, and we don't want to wind up
Yeah, right.
in
Right.
that stage.
No, I had a claim once, and you probably find this interesting. I had a claim once where I had my water heater was in my garage. I had 2 motorcycles in the garage, and I had a bunch of stuff, typical tools and stuff in the garage. I go away for a week, and I come back, and I hit my garage door opener just to walk into the house, because I used, even though I had motorcycles in the car, I put the car in the driveway. I'd hit the garage door opener, I walk into the house. I hit the garage door opener, and I see steam coming out of the garage. And I'm like, at first I didn't really think about it. It almost looked like a fog coming out of the garage. It was wild.
Yes.
And I open the garage, I walk in, and it's hot and steamy, and the mold is 6 foot high on the drywall. It was horrible.
Yes.
We had to replace
Yep.
everything in the garage. Now, here was the really weird thing. I pulled both motorcycles out of the garage because I knew they shouldn't be in there anymore. And I was going out the house the next day, and I just happened to glance one of the motorcycles. One of the screws had a little rust spot on it. And then I looked over the whole motorcycle.
Yeah.
The entire motorcycle, everything that was chrome was rusted. Everything that wasn't chrome was rusted. I called the insurance company, and the insurance company, they came down. They took both motorcycles and handed me a check for both motorcycles. I'm like, you're not going to fix them? They go, we're not going to fix them because this kind of damage, you're going to call me back a month from now that something else doesn't work, that something else doesn't work, and something else doesn't work, and something else doesn't work. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
Yes.
That's how much damage this stuff can do. It was kind of nice. I got a new motorcycle out of it.
Yeah. But that creates a perfect environment for mold growth. The steam from hot water heater.
I bet, yeah. And it was dark too. From what I understand, when it's dark, it's even worse, right?
Yes.
And why is it that it's worse in the dark than it is in the light?
Well, you can actually have it just creates the right condition for that. If you have ultraviolet lights, I know that there's been some people who had mold growth inside their coils in the air conditioning.
Oh, that can't be good.
And a HVAC company will put an ultraviolet light in there to kill mold.
Okay.
So yeah,
I'm telling you, every time you talk about this, you make it sound so easy. I'm just gonna go out and get a fish tank light and put it on and put it in my.
There you
HVAC.
go. You don't have to worry about mold growth, right?
Right. All right. So we've got about 2 minutes left. First of all, first question is, how can people get a hold of you? What's the name of your company?
Matrix Restoration Service.
Okay, great. So Matrix Restoration Service is located in what area do they service?
In Jamison. So we service all Bucks County, Eastern Montgomery County, and we service New Jersey as well.
All right. So somebody watching this is scratching their head right now going, there's something down the basement that I'm not sure about. Maybe I should call Ed at Matrix right now. Describe what that would look like.
Somebody who finds mold in their basement right now?
They're not sure. So they're
not sure. They can call me.
Okay. And then what happens when they call you? You obviously come down and take a look at it, but
I'll come out and do a visual inspection.
Okay.
It costs nothing to do that.
Oh, okay, good.
If they want to proceed doing other inspection types, such as air sampling, yes, there's a fee involved with that.
So I've had people say, I get sick a lot in my house. I should check for mold. Is that something true, or is it?
Yes.
Okay, and that's just a simple, Okay, so here's a question. I've seen these things in Home Depot where they have these little mold tests, where it's like a card that has different swatches. I don't know what it is, and you put it in, and if the swatches turn a certain color, there's mold. Is that accurate?
It can be accurate, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Okay.
It's not done professionally. It's a petri dish that's left open, and you send it away to the lab.
Right. So
it's not an actual pulling of an air sample.
Okay, I got you. So if but if it comes out negative, like I'm sorry, if it comes out positive where there is mold, is it probably mold, or is it just a great way to sell more products?
It's a great way to sell more products.
Okay.
Yes.
Because as a landlord, you got to be aware of these things. Because what happens is a lot of times, the landlords, you got these people saying, "Oh, I get sick of my house all the time, and I checked it for mold with this Home Depot thing," and then they want you to check the house for mold. And and if you don't check the house for mold, it's a pain in the neck, because if there really is mold, you're in trouble. If there really isn't mold, then you win the case. I mean, I've heard of cases where people rejected the mold claim, and then the tenant got the entire year's rent back as damages, which is really bad.
Yes,
All right, great. So do you have a website for people to talk about?
Yes,
What's the website?
matrixrestoration.com.
Matrixrestoration.com. And what's a phone number they can reach you?
215-397-7004.
That's awesome, man. Anything else you want to say to the audience for about 10 seconds?
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome,
And
man.
call. If you think you have mold, give me a call.
All right, wave goodbye to everybody.
See you.
All right, take care, everybody.